Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Are we
Hello.
recording now? All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the O365 Pulse. I believe we will have a very short show today. It will be the Adam Show. There are a lot of admin updates. So we're going to go through. I'm going to pick one, pass it to Tamara, then pass it to Tom. Tom, I'm not going to start with you because whenever I start with you or go to you, you do like four at a time, and there's only like three this time. So you're cut off. You're going to go last before Adam. So.
Ow. Okay.
Not really
This is
last, just
here.
last before me. I'm still last. Don't worry, Tom.
So we're going to start with in development. This means they're back in Redmond. They're making it. They're figuring out how to make it work, and then it's going to come out. So the first thing on the list is SharePoint based or SharePoint scenario based templates. And so they're coming up with a way for us to build things using predefined templates for sites. So right now you have a communication site, you have a team site when you start a site, but you may be able to get something like a project site or a, I don't know, a HR site. Who knows what they're going to come up with that scenario, but it's going to be pre-configured. I don't know if they're going to be customizable. We really don't know a whole lot about these, but they're in development right now, and it looks like they're coming out for release in March of 2021. And what do we know about 2021? I believe that's when the next Ignite is, isn't it? So
Good point. Very
so
good
that
point.
could be a good timeline to watch there. So I imagine even if you don't see it, you'll probably, maybe if it doesn't release then, you might see a session about it. So something to watch and see there. So templates are coming. I know we've been telling them we want them forever. So I'll pass it to Tamara.
All right, I'm going to talk about the SharePoint app bar. So the SharePoint app bar brings a consistent navigation experience to every site on your intelligent intranet, featuring quick access to important sites across the organization with global navigation, personally relevant sites, and news feeds. This is set to come out in March of 2021 for targeted release.
That sounds
All
like fun.
right.
Do
All
do I
right.
get to talk now?
You may talk now, Tom.
Let me talk now. There's nothing I want to talk about now. There's one thing at the very end of the in development list that I'll toss out there. For Microsoft Teams, for the people who create new team sites, you have different experiences in the Teams admin client versus how you would create a new team within the Teams client. They're going to synchronize those two to where the experience will be the same in both. So you won't have basically an entirely different process depending on where you do it from. You should be able to do the same thing in both locations. So that's a good thing.
Awesome. Well, then, Adam, I'm going to pass it to you, and you can wrap us up with in development because everything else I think is compliance center and defender and all of those types of things. So we'll let
Yeah,
you wrap it up for the in development section.
yeah. There's some cool stuff in here. I'm not going to talk about everything because I'm sure it will make its way through the cycle. So we'll have three chances ultimately to talk about all this stuff. A lot of it is scheduled for March, June-ish of the upcoming year, so probably around the cycle we're going to start seeing stuff coming out. But as she said, there is some cool stuff in Compliance Center. A couple that I actually thought was actually kind of cool. For instance, they're coming out, and this stuff is all coming out in preview right now. What they're calling adaptive retention policies. This is actually a thing that's going to really help out global organizations. Basically, if you wanted to create a retention policy for how stuff is going to be held, you can now scope it geographically, department, stuff like that. So I literally had a customer that I worked with that was a UK company merging with a US company that both had various compliance regulations they had to deal with and stuff like that. They're actually like airplane manufacturers and stuff. But say, for instance, you needed some sort of specific policy for GDPR, you could actually, with these adaptive retention policies, create a policy that says, okay, for the HR department of the UK team only, here's how I want to handle stuff. So it gives you a lot more granularity based on geography, based on groups, based on departments, stuff like that. So especially for the larger organizations out there that, not everyone is the same and you may have different policies for different people, pretty cool. A couple other things just to note too, also in preview, they'll now start auto labeling labels for cloud attachments. So cloud attachments are just when you send an email, instead of actually having the thing attached, you have a link to SharePoint or a link to OneDrive, something like that. We'll actually start scanning that information live for DLP policies. And so you can go through and look for stuff like credit card data or whatever you need and start labeling, which previously it didn't do. It only do if it's an actual document. So that's pretty cool. You would have had to go through and create the DLP policies and the scanning on the back end of SharePoint before you sent the attachment. Now it's just all inclusive in one thing. And then finally, you're going to start seeing some stuff coming out for like a multi-stage disposition review. So as you're going through and have a document, you can say, okay, well, first it needs to be cleared by HR, then it needs to be cleared by finance, and it needs to be cleared by this certain executive before we can actually decide it's okay to delete. So just, again, stuff to kind of help out the growing compliance and security needs for companies. So nice to see cool things coming out. And then one final shout out for our GCC friends. Microsoft Teams location picker, which is something that was kind of cool that came out for Microsoft information protection. Again, it's the idea that you can say a specific distribution group is doing something with MIP. That's now coming available to GCC in February of this year, which is something that's already out for commercial tenants. So GCC getting some love.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thank you. Tom, since we went first in development, well, I'll let you go first in rolling out.
Because there's only one thing that the three of us would want to talk about. This we've mentioned before, and it's a pretty minor change, but when you see it, you'll kind of go, did things look differently? And that is for Microsoft Teams, the theme and icon updates. They are bringing that into conformance, compliance, whatever, with their standard design criteria that they're currently using. So the fluent backgrounds, the fonts will look a little different. The color theming will be slightly different, but that's pretty much one of those ones where half the people who see it probably won't even notice, and the other half won't even notice until you go, hey, did you notice it's not dark over there anymore? It's like, yeah, it does look a little different, doesn't it? So if you see little minor changes and you wonder what's going on, it's not your eyes, it's a design change.
What this means to me is that you need to go in and update your documentation with new screen captures, because there's going to be that person who's like, it doesn't match.
Yeah, I can't do it. It's not exactly what you see on the paper here.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to OCD.
All right, Adam, what do you got here?
Yeah, there's two Defender ones. One of them's kind of cool. It's what they're calling investigations triggered by manual actions with Microsoft Defender for 365. This is basically looking out for bad admins. So if admins choose to manually do some actions, so it's not an automated thing, but they're choosing to like log into a user's mailbox or something like that, that's now a notable event that you can go through and look at and do stuff with through Defender. And the other thing, again, is kind of cool. We talked about this, I think, last week, or if not the week before, the idea of override alerts. And it's the process of if you have some sort of policy or some sort of configuration that's causing stuff to bypass filters that could be bad, aka I have decided I want to whitelist all Google servers, and so suddenly a phishing email gets through because, you know, there's millions of people on Google servers. That could be bad. It's now going to send you an alert that, hey, we think something bad has happened because of some policy or configuration you have. So not only does it alert you that you should maybe go and check to make sure that this user is okay or they didn't click on the bad email, but also, hey, idiot, you might have something you don't want to have configured that way.
Awesome. Well, Tamara, what do you think about in Launched? What's exciting for you in Launched?
I'm kind of excited about the approval in Teams. So Microsoft has incorporated an approval workflow into Microsoft Teams, so you can easily create, manage, share, and act on approvals directly from your hub for teamwork. Now, this is set to launch in January of this year for general availability. So I'm really excited to see how this is going to play out, if it's going to be flexible enough to meet people's needs, or if it's going to be like the out-of-the-box approval workflow from SharePoint Designer days. Where
looks nice, doesn't work for anything.
You may have this, and that is all that you get.
Good point.
Well, I like the smart backgrounds in Planner. So unique backgrounds to your planner for your plans. That may sound kind of silly, but I think one of the main reasons that they did it is because so many people are in so many different plans. You need a visual cue to know what you're in. So it's not necessarily so you can add flair to it, but it's nice to give it a visual cue so you can remember what plans you're in. So I definitely think that's a good one that's coming. So Tom, what do you think?
I'll take the one that was right in the middle of those two, and that's the new form start page. And again, these are things we've discussed in the past, and it should be out now, available to everybody. But basically, when you go out to the forms portal page, you're going to see a different start page out there, which brings it more into alignment with many of the other things like, Delve and OneDrive and things like that. So it doesn't look like it's something completely different. It now blends into the whole M365 application framework design, what you see when you first go out there type thing.
Awesome. All right, Adam, do you want to wrap us up with the rest and launch?
Sure. There's a couple things in here. Big one for our GCC friends again. DLP is actually coming out to Teams. So this is specifically talking about like chat and channels if you have sensitive information listed in there. This wasn't probably as big of a deal for a lot of GCC High people because rather famously, Azure B2B doesn't work in GCC High. So you probably don't necessarily have a ton of guest users in your teams anyways. But having that come out to Teams, to channels is definitely cool. I'll also go ahead and give a shout out to there's attack simulation training, which is basically getting updates to it. Basically is part of advanced threat protection where you can go through and it'll basically simulate like phishing attacks and stuff. There's a lot of third-party companies that do this already. Microsoft is getting caught up to the game where if you wanted to see how, secure your users are being, stuff like that, it's kind of an all-encompassing solution. And then finally, there's just a junk ton of stuff for Edge. We're not going to go through and talk about all of them. There's a lot of SSO stuff you can see in there. My two favorite ones that I thought were funny was one, you're getting quote-unquote book view for PDFs. So if you wanted to look at a PDF that has 2 pages, it shows it like 1 page on the left and 1 page on the right instead of like top to bottom. Huge improvement. I think all of our lives have been saved with that one. The other thing with that, going through, I saw that they're removing Adobe Flash support, like regardless of the fact that like Flash just doesn't work anymore. But Adobe Flash support is being removed. So
I do think there's one that is interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because it's hit me twice already. And so Edge version is it 0.88 alerts you if your passwords are found in an online leak.
Oh.
So when you log into,
it's just like have you been pwned?
Yes.
This is like the website Have I Been Pwned, basically.
Yeah. So if you log into a site, it will pop up with a red bar and say, this password has been leaked or has been compromised. You should really change your password. So I've had that happen twice on sites that you would, I had it happen on LinkedIn this morning. So I got my LinkedIn password updated and then another one. And so I thought that was very interesting that it's doing that. But I also think it's something that, depending on your user base, could get some help desk calls coming in because people might go, oh crap, like if they see that red pop-up and like it looks a little scary, which is good. You want people to know. So that's definitely something that's interesting to see. So I thought that's an interesting feature.
Yeah. Very cool.
Well, cool. We're on to canceled. And guess what? Canceled's got nothing. They canceled something for the Compliance Center, for Search, and for Defender, but none of it matters because they're all duplicates. So it really means nothing's canceled. So we're good.
Woo!
Welcome to our show today.
Yes, I think we're a record for a quick show. I think it's fair to say we have got, I'll give a prediction, Jen Mason's prediction. We'll do a big show probably next Friday, not Thursday, but Friday. And then we will probably be a little slow again until Ignite. That's typically how it goes.
Yeah.
So there you go. So I think that's where we'll be. So it's going to be, ramping back into the year. So very, very exciting stuff. So it's great to have everybody with us, but thanks for joining us.
Bye, guys.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.